Hello, and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 1830. The topic is training, and the title is, When Should I Perform Tricep Pressdowns? This was a listener request. They're a personal trainer. They train a variety of clients, and they wondered when would be a good time to add isolation exercises such as tricep pressdowns for clients of various goals. The three topics they wanted specifically were fat loss, muscle growth, and strength/athleticism. So, fat loss. I don't. I don't typically give tricep pressdowns to fat loss clients. Now, this is very broad statements. Typically, if I'm looking for fat loss, what we're doing in the workouts is we want to maximize caloric burn, like caloric usage in the workouts. So it's better to focus on multi-muscle, multi-joint movements that will still target muscles we want, such as the triceps, but they help incorporate other muscles as well, and that equates to a greater caloric burn within the workout. For example, you would have them do chest presses or overhead presses. Chest presses, it gets their chest and their triceps. Overhead presses gets their shoulders and their triceps. If you're doing biceps, I typically don't do bicep curls. We would get the biceps involved when we do rows or pull-ups or pull-downs. So typically, I like to stay with more compound movements, multi-muscle, multi-joint movements. I don't typically give a tricep press down to a fat loss client. Now, the variation of this would be is if somebody wants fat loss, but they also really want to have like good muscle size and shape as the fat comes off. If somebody is doing fat loss for a toned look, they just want a nice streamlined look, then I would not do the isolation exercises. But if someone's like, I want to lose 30, 40 pounds of fat, but I want to look freaking jacked, well then yeah, we're going to still keep isolations in there so that way the individual muscle bellies are still well developed by the time the fat comes off. So there's a little bit of nuances that you would do depending on what the ultimate outcome for that client is. But that's kind of two categories. Is if somebody wants a toned, streamlined look and fat loss, I typically don't do isolation work like that, like tricep press downs. If somebody wants fat loss, but they do want to look, muscular at the end of it, then I'll throw them in maybe towards the latter part of the progress, like when they're down the last 5-10 pounds to lose, when they're getting a little closer to the goal, we might add more isolation movements. But at first, we're just looking to burn a lot of calories in the workouts, so I typically use multi-joint, multi-muscle movements. If a client's goal is muscle growth, yes, of course, we're definitely going to add tricep press downs. We would add them at the end of a chest workout or a shoulder workout, or you'd have a whole arm day dedicated to biceps and triceps, depending on what that person's goal is. Some people I do arm day will include their shoulders as well. So we do shoulder cap plus biceps, triceps. Some people would do forearm work, depending on what kind of growth they want. But you would have a dedicated arm day, or you would add tricep press downs at the end of a chest day or a shoulder day. So chest day, for example, they could do a chest fly, then a chest press, and then if they have short upper arm bones, I like to do them another fly because it targets the chest better. If they have long upper arm bones, they're going to get better chest development out of presses than somebody with short upper arms would. So we would do either a fly or a press. But in general, it's fly, press, fly if they have short arms, or fly, press, press, or fly, press, fly. It's kind of optional in that third exercise if you have longer upper arms. And then we would do a tricep press down. Now, I might do other types of tricep isolations like skull crushers, maybe overhead extensions, dips. But in general, if you're going to do tricep press downs, you would do them at the end. If you have a shoulder day, you might do, some type of shoulder raise, then a press, then another raise, or a raise, press, press. And then you would add your tricep exercise, your tricep isolation, such as triceps press downs. If you're a strength athlete, strength, if you're trained for strength and you're an athlete in strength, or you're just an athlete, but strength is your goal, then you would add them at the end of any kind of pressing day. If you have a bench day or an overhead day, you would add them then. Strong man, if you're doing some log work, overhead presses, you're going to add the triceps at the end of that day. And it's the same idea as you go through, do your bigger movements, and then you narrow down to the isolated movements. So we tend to do a warm-up at the beginning of the workout, then your multi-joint compound movements in the middle, and then isolative work towards the very end. So that's going to be the typical way in which we would add in tricep press downs. Now, would you ever perform tricep press downs first? I have. I actually have done that. And it would be if you want to prioritize tricep growth over the chest and or shoulders. So an example was I had a client that had big, thick chest and torso. They weren't necessarily like a bodybuilder. They just had a big, thick midsection, and they had really skinny arms. And they were always self-conscious about their arms because they would wear shirts that were big enough to fit their torso, but they felt like the sleeves were like stupidly large and made their arms look even smaller. So they're like, I don't care what happens, with the middle of me. I just want to get my arms bigger. So our goal was fat loss, but also get freaking jacked arms. So we trained arms, and we would do an arm day, then a leg day, then a push day, then a pull day. They trained 4 days a week. That's the best their schedule allowed. That's actually plenty. That was good enough. So arm day, leg day, then a push muscles, which is chest, shoulders, triceps, then a pull day, which is back and biceps. So the push day, for example, we did tricep press downs first. We did really high rep variations of tricep isolation work. Then we did a chest press. Then we did shoulder raises, then an overhead press. And then we did another tricep isolation. So their triceps would have been involved in the chest press and the overhead press. So out of the 5 exercises, I actually did 4 that were triceps related. 2 of them were tricep isolations. So it worked. We also had, great nutrition built around that, tons of protein, and we ate correctly to blend our goal of growth in with the fat loss. But it was great. They loved it. Good results. So that would be an option if the tricep growth was more important than chest or shoulder growth. So if you're trying to balance out a physique, you can do triceps isolations first as a pre-exhaust to really get great muscle damage to promote better growth. Okay, this one was short and sweet. That's it. If anybody has, if you like this idea and you want to do a similar podcast with a different exercise or category of anything, just let me know. I thought this was a fun question. So when should I perform? ... You fill in the ... you fill in the blank. Anything you want to know, and I'll make another podcast like this. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, shoot me an email at brutalirongym@gmail.com. If you like the podcast, please share the podcast. If you like the podcast, please consider donating to support the podcast, which you can do on our website. If you like the information we share in the podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels. You can find us and follow us on Instagram and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Gym. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.